Mario Party, the 4-player classic that's created more problems and friendships than the writing team of a daytime soap opera. I've personally spent a lot of time playing this with my family when I was younger, and going back to it now really makes me nostalgic. It should come as no surprise that a game like this has a fair amount of unused content hidden within it. To be specific, I'm talking about the original released for the Nintendo 64. Surprisingly enough, out of the N64 trilogy, only the first game seems to have a lot of things to talk about, with 2 and 3 having next to nothing in terms of unused content. To start off, let's jump into the meat of it and talk about some mini-games. Anyone who's ever heard of Mario Party knows that it plays like a board game where all the players participate in a randomly selected mini-game at the end of each round of turns. Upon release, the first Mario Party boasted a total of 50 mini-games. However, within the game's data, we can actually see that there are more than that. 4 to be exact. The first of these I want to talk about is the minigame known as Same Game. It's a single-player minigame that seems simple enough. Clear the blocks correctly and you'll get the chest in the corner here. But if you mess up, you'll be forced to take the walk of shame out of these doors, which only gives you the chump change of a single coin. Looking at it as is, it seems pretty strange that this was cut from the final version of the game. It seems finished, works properly, and there doesn't seem to be any issue that would warrant it being removed. I mean, it makes no sense to me. Come on, Nintendo, it's functional and you left it on the cartridge. Why not use it? Why is it that this game wasn't okay, but the one that forces me to tear the skin off of my palm is? If you weren't already a ghost, Boo, I'd murder you myself. What's also strange is that this minigame doesn't even have a preview screen made up for it, but it does have an icon made for it, suggesting that the developers were making one but for some reason stopped. We'll probably never get to know the story behind why this minigame went unused. Moving on though, we still got 3 more to talk about. Unlike Same Game though, it's pretty easy to see the reasons why these other ones never made it into the final game. The next one we're going to talk about is called All or Nothing. By hacking the game, we can reach the preview screen for it. The first thing you may notice is that despite the minigame's description being translated to English, the minigame's title is still written in Japanese. Obviously, the English reversion came out after the Japanese one, so it seems odd for the translation team to bother translating something that they knew was never going to appear. This is pure speculation here, but this may have been done to prevent potential problems when switching the game's font to one that doesn't use Japanese characters. As for the graphics, since we're never supposed to be on this screen, they never bothered to make an English graphic like they did with the other minigames. Looking at the text down here, we can see that this is some kind of simple luck-based game, and judging by the preview image, it seems similar to what happens when you land on the infamous chance time space. Funnily enough, when we access this minigame and start it, the game actually brings us to chance time. What we can figure out from this is that All or Nothing was the original concept for chance time, before it was reworked into something else entirely. However, one interesting thing to note is that when we access chance time through the All or Nothing screen, the game loads it as a single-player minigame, meaning that only one character is able to appear on screen. For those of you that don't know, when chance time is finished, the characters whose blocks were hit are supposed to walk on screen. But since the game thinks it's in a state of a single-player minigame, no other characters besides the initial one will load, so nothing happens and the screen remains empty, soft-locking the game, forcing you to reset the console. The next unused minigame is called Tour de Mario. Upon accessing the preview screen for it, we're greeted with quite a surprise. Unlike the one for All or Nothing, this screen has a big graphic in the center. It's obviously still in Japanese, but it translates to Under Construction. This was likely a placeholder while the game was still in development. Although there may be no picture, the name Tour de Mario combined with what we see in the text and controls down here makes it pretty clear that this was supposed to be a minigame that featured the characters riding bicycles in some way, most likely in a race. Unfortunately though, it seems that this was as far as the developers ever got with this minigame, as there actually isn't one to play. Pressing start on the preview screen redirects you to another game, the single-player Bumper Ball Maze. However, while I was trying this out for myself, I managed to make a fun little discovery about this. The Bumper Ball Maze is a unique single-player minigame that is unlocked by completing the minigame Island mode. Once you have access to it, it can only be played in the free play mode, meaning that only a human-controlled character should ever be able to play it. While when I hacked the Tour de Mario screen to appear during a board, it resulted in a CPU player being the one to play the maze. Since the bumper ball maze was never intended to be played by a CPU, the developers understandably never bothered to program any AI associated with it, meaning that the computer will just stay completely still until the timer runs out. Looks like this is one game that Luigi can't win by doing absolutely nothing. The fourth and last unused minigame is known as Yoshi's Tongue Meeting. This one doesn't have a preview screen, and access it throws you right into the game. The goal here is to make the tongue of your character's Yoshi give the baby Wiggler back to its mother without going too far or not reaching close enough. By playing the game, you can easily tell that it's unfinished. It feels a little wonky when playing it, and the sound is incredibly glitchy, continuing to loop through different sound effects such as when entering the warp pipe on the main menu, or the sound when you receive a star from Toad. The likely scenario here is that the developers just weren't able to finish this one before release. I gotta say though, there is a nice little touch here for when doing this minigame while someone is playing as Yoshi. Instead of riding a randomly colored Yoshi like everyone else, Yoshi just does the whole thing himself. And I guess it would have been, let's say, questionable to have Yoshi riding a Yoshi. Especially when you consider that the Yoshis being rode on change after every round. You know what, I'm gonna stop that line of thought before it goes somewhere bad. And oddly enough, there seems to be this trend happening on every unused content episode, where when I attempt to hack a game, something goes wrong in a hilarious way. Well, this time, during one instance of accessing the Yoshi's Tongue minigame, I managed to make every character Mario. Well, what can I say? I guess it is in the title. Wait a second. Mario wins? As in Mario's full name in the movie? Did I just accidentally prove that the Mario Brothers movie did something right? I get the feeling that someone at Nintendo somewhere just felt a shiver run down their spine. Now before I move on, I just want to take a second and talk about a quote-unquote fifth unused minigame, because if I don't, I'm sure many of you will bring it up in the comments below. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and stop you right there and tell you that there is no fifth minigame. Yes, there is something in the data listed under the name Bungee Jump, but that's all it is, just a name. It was either cut very early on for some unknown reason, or maybe it was planned, but the developers just didn't have time to even start on it. Whatever the reason, we may never know for sure. Like I mentioned before, after every character on the map has had their turn, at the end of the round, all players will have to take part in a minigame. However, there is an unused bizarre state that causes all of the characters' panels to turn yellow, and then display a graphic in the center that says, "No game." As you might have already guessed, this causes the game to advance to the next round without a minigame needing to be played. It was probably planned at some point for there to be something on the board to trigger this feature, and despite it being programmed into the game, it was obviously decided that it would not be used anywhere. Similarly, a game over graphic was also meant to appear on the board. It seems that this was meant to be used during the last turn of the game. It's not known why it was cut from use in the final version. And while we're on the subject, there are a few other unused graphics I want to mention. In addition to the two graphics I just showed, there also exists some more on the cartridge that never appear anywhere in the game. Taking a look at them, it's easy to see that they're all essentially alternates of already existing graphics, only in different colors and styles. It's possible that the reason they all go unused is because the developers wanted to keep consistency with the font used regularly throughout the game, as all of these look drastically different from each other visually. Another interesting thing left over in the data is these character images. They're of extremely low quality, and the majority of them appear to be taken directly from the official artwork of Mario Kart 64. The most likely explanation for these images being here is that the developers might have been using them as placeholders for character portraits before the final ones could be completed. I can't think of any other reason why there would be such graphics for all of the playable characters on the cartridge otherwise, although that doesn't entirely explain the one for Bowser. Next up, we have something that sits on the border between used and unused content. As most people know, the main way of obtaining stars in Mario Party is by buying them from Toad when you reach him on the board. And even though the star counter in the game has 2 digits, generally, in an average game, it's very rare to see someone get at least 10 stars before the end of the game. However, unbelievably, Toad is actually programmed to say a special message if the player speaks to him while having the game's maximum count of 99 stars. Toad will inform the player that they are unable to have any more stars, and to come back if they lose any. This is absolutely insane. The highest amount of turns that you can have in the original Mario Party is 50, which would mean that in order to see this message, someone would essentially have to earn at least 2 stars every turn, and reach Toad again before the game ends. If you've ever played this game before, then you're probably aware of how difficult of a feat that would be. Even if you were able to cheat and have perfect dice rolls for the entire game, it still might not even be possible for this to occur on any of the game's boards. So although this piece of info may not technically count as unused content, I'd say it's next to impossible that anyone has ever managed to trigger it legitimately. And finally, we come to the last bit of info I've got for all of you. Through hacking and enabling the game's debug features, we can reach some strange game modes, known as random play and sequential play. These modes aren't too special, as they just have you play random minigames over and over. The theory for their existence is that they were used for testing the way the game randomizes minigames. The most noteworthy thing to me here, though, is the character portraits. This mode uses art for almost all of the playable characters that is not seen anywhere else in the game. I say almost all of the characters because, as we can see here, Donkey Kong is left as a silhouette with a question mark in the middle. There is a strong theory that while the game was early in development, Nintendo used this image as a placeholder while they awaited permission from Rare to use their design of Donkey Kong that was featured in the Donkey Kong Country series. The fact that a final one was never made for this set of portraits shows that the developers never intended for them to be used in the final game, and were all likely just for testing purposes. Which is good, because the less computer-generated images of Donkey Kong in the late 90s there are, the better. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. I just want to take a second and apologize for taking so long with this. After I finally got moved into the new place, I got really sick, and I just couldn't do anything, and it was a complete disaster. And oh, you don't care about my life problems, you don't care at all, you just want more videos. And if you want to see some more videos, you can click the things down below. You can check out my video on bad Sonic fan games right here. That's pretty fun. That's pretty fun. We look at some really shitty ones, too. Best that DeviantArt has to offer. And if you click on the other side here, you can look at some videos on my Let's Play channel that I upload a lot more frequently than I do here. So if you want to, while you're waiting for the next video here, you can go ahead and click on some stuff there. I got a lot more videos in the works for both channels, so be sure to subscribe or whatever. I can't force you, you know, do what you want. It's just, ugh. Not to worry, we're not gonna, hopefully the next video will not take as long, because I don't have as much going on now. That sounded so sad when I said it like that. Oh well, goodbye everybody.